Welcome to the Women's Connection. I'm Barry Louise Whitson, your moderator. Women's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned?
Welcome. No matter what our career status is, we are all seeking a better position. If we're considering changing fields, how do we cross over? With me is a woman who has done this many times, moving up the ladder of success. With me is Miriam Muley, and I would like to welcome her. Welcome, Miriam.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Let's start out with, what exactly are you doing right now?
Well, currently I'm the Executive Director for Diversity Strategy at General Motors, and essentially in a nutshell, what that position includes is marketing and sales responsibilities for what we view as our diversity markets. And it is, believe it or not, the women's market, African Americans, right, Hispanics, Asians, youth, and the gay and lesbian market. And we work very closely with our divisions and the regions to ensure that our advertising, our promotions, and our sales outreach efforts really do welcome these consumers into our franchise.
Well, I'm glad they finally recognized the power of women.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It hasn't always been that way. It's been a long road.
Yeah, women are really a very critical part of the automotive buying process. We purchase 44% of all new cars and trucks, but influence the purchase of 85% of all purchases. So you cannot ignore the power of the female market.
Strong.
Very strong.
Very strong. How did you start out in business?
Well, it was a long time ago, but really coming out of graduate school, I had the opportunity to attend Columbia University right here in New York. I'm a native New Yorker, born, raised, and educated. And I think, you know, I always appreciated the importance of education, even early on. My parents certainly instilled that value in me. But coming out of graduate school, it was clear to me that my real interests were in marketing and psychology, those two fields. And so therefore, coming out of graduate school, I sought a career that would really allow me to leverage both of those talents, and business made the natural sense to me. And so I embarked on a career all the way in Dallas, Texas at Frito-Lay.
Frito-Lay, Dallas?
Yes, yes. Coming from New York, that was kind of a far trip, but worthwhile, certainly worthwhile.
What skill set did you have that enabled you to go to Texas to take this job?
Well, I think certainly coming out of Columbia University with an MBA in marketing gave me, I think, strong theoretical skills to get into business. I always was very strong in psychology and marketing, and felt pretty good in terms of the quantitative areas of math as a basic background. So I went to Frito-Lay. I was, you know, unencumbered by the fact that it was a long distance away from New York, and really was placing great value on the quality of the career training that I felt that I would get from a company like Frito-Lay, which I think, in fact, I did receive.
What do you wish that people told you starting out in life? Or starting out in the business world, I should say.
Well, I thought about that, and I think that one of the things, as great as Columbia is as an academic learning environment, one of the things that I think would have been wonderful to know more about is the importance of networking, mentoring, really establishing solid relationships early on in one's career. I almost think that there needs to be a curriculum just built around that discipline so that people walk into a business environment appreciating the importance of relationships and nurturing those relationships, because you don't know it all. You cannot seed with just the knowledge that you have in your own mind individually. You've got to leverage relationships and really build your own success based on those bridges, if you will.
Well, it goes back to the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've got to know who to know in the corporation and who can help you really cross over those critical bridges.
Are there any tricks of the trade going forward that you would suggest about networking today?
You know, I think the more people that you can speak with, people who may be in fields or doing something that you're interested in pursuing in terms of a business career, I would encourage people to have those conversations, to dialogue with them, to get their perspectives on what has worked, what hasn't worked. Really be unafraid to pursue that face-to-face contact with individuals who are doing something that you're interested in. If an employee can become active in those organizations, that is one way to meet new people, to share best practices, share experiences, to just bounce ideas off of other people who are like you and get some sense of what might make sense in various situations. So I think using your affinity groups within corporations is a strategy I might underscore to people in their 40s or so.
Well, that was very new because that has never been around before.
True, true. I think pretty much in the 90s, mid-90s, that forum has become more available to employees at different corporations.
I think they finally woke up and said, we need everybody's input.
Yes, yes, there's power in numbers in terms of benefiting corporations, but it really benefits the individual as well. You know, as I said before, because it really is a way for you to make new contacts, women in different fields of the company, if it's a women's organization, and get different ideas around how to approach different challenges that you might be facing.
What challenges did you have coming up the ladder?
Boy, we need a whole lot for that. You know, I think it's certainly what we talked about earlier, not really understanding the importance of having a mentor, knowing who to go to in a large organization in particular. You know, where do you begin to address an issue? That's we talked about the importance of mentoring and having those relationships built in. I think beyond that, you know, in a large organization, certainly being a woman of color made it a little bit more challenging to be appreciated for what you bring to the table, to be respected in terms of your intellectual capabilities. I think that's an added challenge that really makes our movement up the career ladder a little bit more difficult.
Well, I question that because I think every woman has had trouble moving up the ladder. So I know I will say something in a meeting and people will look at me like I don't know what I'm talking about, but yet they'll take whatever I've said and turn it around to their benefit, and they're often flying with the idea.
That does happen. I think that definitely happens to women. I've personally had that happen to me a couple of times, but I think a woman of color in particular always has to reach a different level of achievement, if you will. There's a different level of acceptance and other barriers that she has to face in addition to just being a woman. So there's the credibility issue, there's being heard, that issue as well that we all face as women. But I think beyond that, it goes a little bit deeper for women of color. There have been several studies by Catalyst, for example, that really cite the importance of networking. Again, just getting back to that very basic fundamental principle of who you know in the organization, who knows you, and who will be willing to take risks on you that they may not take with other individuals. I think that's all part of the equation of success.
Did you use to maximize your success?
Hard work, putting in a great deal of my own personal integrity and very high performance standards for excellence, really in everything that I do. Seeking out relationships, being uncomfortable really in doing that in many instances, but knowing that that is kind of how the game, quote unquote, is played, that one has to reach out a little bit and make establish some relationships that would at least begin to introduce yourself to key people in the organization. Taking on stretch assignments, really raising your hand and saying, hey, I can do this, consider me for this particular assignment. In some cases, because I am also a mother and have a husband, you know, there's this whole issue of work-life balance or work-life integration that one has to trade off continuously. And while I'd hate to think that I've made wrong decisions related to my family, I certainly have put in a lot of hours related to work. So for me personally, it's been the right series of decisions, and you know, I think it has paid off in terms of my career, but there are always compromises that we have to make.
Going back, you had said something when you were in business, you stretched yourself and you felt uncomfortable. What did you feel? Describe what you felt, if you can remember.
Well, I know that, and this is going way back to probably the late 70s, early 80s, there were many instances where I was either the first woman or the first woman of color. In many instances, I could feel the uncomfort or discomfort, I should say, of people around me, just not knowing who I was. I mean, just didn't know how to react to me. And so I always felt it important to be very welcoming to them so that they understood that I was just there to do the job. And, you know, I would do things like cookies and donuts. I mean, truly, I would do that just to make people feel, disarm them, that I was not that different from them. Really, I was there to do the work and wanted to establish some friendships, as strange as that may sound, but that was really the truth.
One of the problems I think everybody is, gee, they would like to change careers or fields that they've spent their life in. They don't know what to do, let alone how to, or how do they take those skills and move them into another career completely opposite from what they've been doing.
One of the things that I did that I found very helpful was to and it took a series of days, but to list out all of my accomplishments, everything that I had done. I mean, literally, and it was painstaking. It's painstaking, not in a way that I'm patting myself on the shoulder, but just to really take the time to think about what you've done, what you felt good about, and reviewed it with others as well to get kind of a mirror reflection of how people viewed me. So I had a pretty comprehensive package, if you will, of accomplishments.
That's pretty brave to ask other people.
Yeah, I did, and I wanted just to get some feedback, validation, and maybe to identify other gaps that I had not really seen on my own. And from that list, I was able to then, you know, it was almost like looking at a very tactical list of accomplishments. I had to bring it up to a more macro level, if you will, of what was common about those accomplishments, and then look at them void of a particular product or a particular target, and reposition it for a different industry. So it's a little bit of legwork, you know, because it does take time. It does take being vulnerable to what another person thinks about you, and then look at those skills in the context of what is transferable to another industry. It's like rebranding yourself, in effect. You're repositioning yourself if you think about yourself as a brand. How do you...
We have to.
And we have to.
Yes.
We have to, because we have equity in terms of what we've established professionally. How do you reposition that equity in a different industry?
How did where you grew up and how you grew up affected you, the way you deal with your children and the world around you, as well as the people you work with?
Well, I had the good fortune of growing up with two very wonderful parents. My mother and my father were great role models for me. We grew up in the South Bronx, which was certainly not a plush, affluent neighborhood. Really, the South Bronx is the South Bronx. But I think from that experience, because again, of the values that were instilled by my parents of working hard, again, doing well in school, being rewarded for getting the A's and getting that recognition, I took those same values and really have applied it to my children. I mean, they know. I mean, I would pay them $50 for an A. I mean, that's how, you know, insistent I was that education was important. But I also appreciated how far that I've come in terms of looking back now at the neighborhood and seeing that, wow, you know, that was a tough environment to live in, and I was somewhat shielded from all of that because I was so focused on doing well in school. Now, today we're able to provide more to our children in terms of lifestyle, and I don't want them to appreciate what they have, but still focus on education and the importance that really does represent for their future careers.
It's a shame that more parents don't say education is the key.
It's so critical. I mean, especially for children of color. I mean, I have to, you know, for anyone in general, education is key, but I think particularly for children of color, it is the differentiator. It is what can make a difference in being an average earner to a very successful earner in one's career, and having doors opened to you. So I think, was it Oprah Winfrey who's on several of her shows, that for her education was the key? That is really the, I can't quite remember exactly what her words were, but that is what differentiates individuals, the quality of the education that you receive and what you take out of it. That's what I really try to instill with the children.
What would you like to leave the audience with?
Well, I think, you know, we've touched upon a lot of different areas here. I think what's most important for me in the area of repositioning, and, you know, if one is maybe feeling stuck in a career is to be unafraid to take a step back and to do an inventory of their accomplishments and to get some input, unbiased input from different people, that they value their input, and just see what other doors they could walk through. I mean, I think it's about taking that step and being unafraid to pursue other opportunities. But know that you've got it all. You really do have it all in you to be successful.
Ma'am,
oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
And thank you for joining us. You've learned something about changing careers and how to do it. Well, it is because of my guest here that I've got these wonder bags under my eyes. I stay up late reading her books. She has enough books in print to fill Giant Stadium 3,000 times plus. And rather than hear statistics from me, I'd like to welcome Nora Roberts. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right. That's about all I can tell you. I love to write books, and I've been doing, I've been writing since 1979.
There's a turning point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, you were homebound in a blizzard with your two young sons.
Yeah, my 3- and 6-year-old, and we had the East Coast blizzard hit in 1979. We had about 3 feet of snow. I live in rural Maryland and back a lane. I didn't have 4-wheel drive then. And no morning kindergarten, day after day after day.
Well, that must have gotten on your nerves.
It certainly did. And I decided to take one of the stories out of my head and write it down on paper for fun, really. But I fell in love with the process of writing.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
How many books do you have in print?
Over 250 million.
All right. How many books have you written?
Over 150.
Over 150.
Yeah.
And that's in 20 years?
20, yeah, 20 plus, yeah.
Wow. What is the process that you go through to write a book?
I have to come up with an idea. An idea may start, as it did with Northern Lights, with the place. I wanted to set a book in Alaska. I wanted to paint something on that vast canvas. What could I do with that? And I start to build the story from there. Or it may be a character, it may be a situation. Any one of those things may set me off to where I start building the story until I have a vague idea of what that might be in my head. And then I start researching. Researching the setting, researching the professions, or whatever I need to know in order to write the story. And within the researching, I usually get story ideas and plot ideas that sort of push me in different directions. Then I sit down and get started.
What have you found to be the most difficult situation for you to write?
You know, I don't find writing difficult any more than it always is. It's a hard job. It's hard work. Now on tour, when you're leaving brain cells behind in every city, I don't write very much. But I can, if I have to, you can write anywhere. You just have to put yourself into the story.
Right. Well, how do you come up with ideas?
I have no clue.
It just comes to you.
I don't think any writer can give you an honest answer to that. I don't know where ideas come from. I don't need to know as long as I keep getting them. Ideas, I think, are the easier part of writing. There are a million, trillion ideas out there. It's getting the right idea and crafting it into a story. That's the sweaty work. The idea itself, that's the way writers think. They think in story ideas.
Right. Mysteries and romance.
Right.
How do you put your brain off? Do you write them both simultaneously, the two storylines at the same time, or do you switch off and write just a romance or a mystery?
I like blending. Mm-hmm. And romance as a genre, as a big umbrella, has a lot of spokes on it. You can add any element to romance, any element of fiction, as long as you have that core relationship. You can add mystery, you can add suspense, you can add comedy or drama or paranormal or anything you want, as long as you have that key relationship. And I've been doing that for years, so I've been blending romantics and making romantic suspense for a long, long time. I write relationship books. I write about people. Whatever I'm writing, whether it's more toward the suspense, still has a key relationship in it. It's all about people. Or the puzzles in our morality plays, mysteries are, where you have to fit all the pieces together and goodwill through determination and sacrifice and hard work and taking risks overcome and punish evil. That's why I like mysteries. And romances or relationship books are our continuity, where you seek a mate and love and create a family. And where would we be without family? It's human nature.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's an evolution.
Right.
There any outstanding time in your life that you look back and you say, wow, look what I've accomplished?
I think it's like it's day by day with me, and I don't think about things like that when I'm working. I'm thinking about the story. It's only when I'm out, I'm doing interviews or I'm going to bookstores and doing events that it's a big deal, and I see people and talk to people, and it's I'm not working. This is what's around the work, and all in all, I'd just rather be at the keyboard.
You write under two names.
Right.
One is J.D. Robb. How did you come up with that?
Well, actually, because I write quickly, both my editor and my publisher had been after me to take a pseudonym. Take a pseudonym. The inventory's building up. You could write under two names, and I didn't like the idea. So I thought, well, I don't want to write a book. It doesn't have my name on it. Why would I do that? So then one day my agent called me, and she was discussing it. She said, Nora, there's Pepsi, there's Diet Pepsi, and there's caffeine-free Pepsi. And I thought, oh, boy, now I get it. It's marketing, and I could be two popular brands, so let me think about this again. And I finally agreed to do it if I could do something different. Straight relationship, not straight romantic suspense, but something different to make it worthwhile for me to take another name. And I thought, oh, the near future, wouldn't that be fun? And the character of Eve Dallas came to me sometime before that, but I didn't know what to do with her. Or here was Place. Oh, this tough, dark, interesting, strong, disturbed woman, in this incredibly powerful woman, but a very gritty, a violent woman in a violent job. She's a homicide lieutenant in New York in 2058 when the series opens. And then to have continuing characters, I thought, well, that would be fun to do. So I don't have to wrap everything up in one book or a finite number. It's open-ended. I can just peel layers off, book by book, of her personality, of who she is, of the relationships, not only with her love interest with Rourke, but with the people around her, the relationships, her friendships and work relationships, and that sort of thing, and discover more with each book who she is and who they are and how they change each other and how all of that evolves.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
You touch both worlds.
And have a really great time writing them. I've become incredibly attached to that cast of characters.
When you write a novel, how many times do you have to rewrite it before you get it where you say, okay, this is the best I can do, and it goes off to the...
It completely depends. Generally, I'll do 3 drafts. That's my general process. If it needs more, I give it more. 3 is usually when I feel like this is the best I can do. Send it to my editor, and then if she tells me it needs more work, I've got a direction. You know, this section here or that section there, or can you give me, this other angle? Then I've got a direction, and I can go back in and tweak some more.
Does that happen often?
Not often, but it happens, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
Sees something, she's an objective bystander,
Exactly.
she sees something that you haven't thought of.
Yeah, and she's my creative partner. Her interest is the same as mine, right. to publish the best book possible.
You had an interesting way to meet your husband. Everybody
Yes.
wants to know, how did you meet your husband? Watch you on the internet looking for a husband. How did you meet your husband?
I hired him.
Well, that's a good way.
Yeah, he was a carpenter. I needed bookshelves. He was recommended. He lived about 3 miles from me. I'd never met him. And he walked in. He did a great job. He looked wonderful in a tool belt, so I kept him. And we've been married 19 years.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And no looking back, and you permanently borrow his books.
Oh, yeah, he is always building. And he's built me, I don't know how many bookshelves, and expanded the house. He's a wonderful carpenter. And then he opened a bookstore about almost 10 years ago in a little town near us, and it's become a really great bookseller. So I have the best. and that I've got this wonderful bookstore that I can go to and steal books whenever I like. No one arrests me. Someone who really understands so much more of the business now than he used to, and someone who can fix my toilet on Sunday. You know, it's better than marrying a millionaire.
When are you going to put this all into a book?
Oh no, I don't base books on real events. Certainly not in my life or real people, because that's all I would see. If I built a character on my husband Bruce, all I would see was Bruce. I would never see the character. So the characters all come out of my head.
And I noticed on your PR stuff you've got 2 different personas.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, the 2 different images between Roberts and Rob.
Right.
I really don't put on leather to sit down and do an in-depth book. It's the same for me.
What would you like to leave the audience with?
I would hope that I haven't tried one of my books and do that they're entertained. That's my main goal when I sit down to write a book, is to tell a really good story, a good entertaining story. A big entertaining lie, that's what fiction is. So the reader can have fun with it and enjoy it.
No, I can't tell you how wonderful this has been to
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you've enjoyed as much as I have our interview here with Nora Roberts. And you can check out the Woman's Connection website for a lot of her books. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye now.